Well, welcome to the Region 6 podcast. It's hashtag R6 Prepares podcast. Our guest today is our first from another region, and not only from another region, from FEMA. It's our FEMA Region 2 partner, Community Preparedness Officer, Debbie Costa. Debbie, welcome to the hashtag R6 Prepares podcast.
Hi, Bill. Thanks so much for having me today.
Glad to have you. And I am Bill Bischoff. I am Debbie's counterpart in FEMA Region 6. We handle Arkansas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, New Mexico, Texas, and tribal partners therein. You in Region 2, what do you have on your plate there, Debbie?
Region 2 is made up of New York, New Jersey, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. Plenty
there as well. Here's what I really want to talk to you today about. I have envy. We've got the hashtag R6 Prepares podcast, and we've been doing this about a year, maybe a little bit more, and we're on maybe our 7th or 8th podcast, and we've built a little following with maybe 150 here, 200 there if we're lucky, and we're still building. But then I found that you were doing a webinar in Region 2 in which you're getting a pretty substantial numbers, and you're doing it on various topics. We stay pretty much on our community emergency response team, program managers, and our youth preparedness partners. And that's really all the time we have to get into. That's about as deep as we can get with the manpower we have. I think you've gone a little bit further with your bandwidth on that webinar. Can you tell us what is the webinar?
So we started the preparedness webinar series probably 2 years ago. We weren't doing them necessarily on a regular basis, but we were doing them. Last year, we made a genuine effort to host one webinar every month. So we had 10 or 12 webinars last year. This year, not being able to engage our stakeholders in any other way except through a virtual environment, we have been doing webinars pretty much nonstop. I think come Christmas, we will have hosted 102 webinars this year.
So when you talk about that, now that's a little bit of time to build up a following as well. And when I joined for a couple of them a while back, I noticed that, Region 2 has turned into the big region. I mean, I saw other people besides myself. I'm operating out of the Denton, Texas, FEMA Region 6, Denton, Texas. And I saw that I was not the only Texas fella in. I saw partners from all across Texas. And then I started looking and saw there were people from other places, other regions. Can you tell me what your reach seems to have grown to?
So when we started doing more webinars, let's say beginning in March of this year, we had a mailing list of about 4,500 people. Primarily Region 2, but we did have some partners on our mailing list outside. And now we have 25,000 names on our mailing list. And I have to add that we don't just put people on the mailing list. We don't just say, okay, we're hosting a webinar. Everybody that's here today, we're adding you on the mailing list. No, people have to ask us to be added to the mailing list. So these are people that have attended our webinars or have received our bulletins that said, hey, I find some value in this. I want to be included. I think to date, we've reached our participation as of yesterday is about 25,000 also. Of that 25,000, we've probably had about 600 from Region 6 join our webinars. We've basically had participants from all 50 states. We've had a few people from Canada, Zimbabwe, Singapore, like 4 or 5 other countries. And I'm like, how did they find out about it? Which is, it's very interesting and it's cool. So We had a webinar the other day, and I think we had representation from from 40 states. So when you see something like that, 44 states, when you see something like that, you got to figure we're doing something right.
Well, you are doing something right. And I know that early on in the pandemic, and by the way, depending upon when you watch or listen to this in the future, we're at the end of October 2020 and still, unfortunately, deep into the pandemic. So we have had to reshape the way we do business, and we have concentrated a lot on our podcast, and again, continue to grow that. While you have done this, I know that one of the first things I did was refer our Region 6 Community Preparedness Working Group to one of your webinars that I think offered kind of mental health checkup or checklist to emergency management partners, which we normally don't concentrate on. And again, we kind of stick to, and I heard from a number of my partners that took the webinar or participated in it, that it was just fantastic. And it they felt like they were being spoken directly to. With that, I've realized that, if we're going to continue to stay virtual, maybe we need to pattern ourselves a bit after Region 2, and that there's no reason perhaps to stay because we have participated mainly in the community preparedness part of things, not so much individual, because we can't embrace all the individuals. We generally drive everybody to ready.gov for their individual needs, and then we concentrate on our community emergency response teams and our youth preparedness councils, and we get a lot of help from them as ambassadors at the state, local, tribal levels. So that's been the way we've worked. But I see on your webinars that you're able to go a lot deeper into serving individuals. Can you give us an idea of some of the webinars that have gone beyond what I'm describing, and where you've been able to dig a little bit deeper towards people?
Well, let me just first address what you had just mentioned. I think that if you look at any of the data analysis that even FEMA has gathered, referring people to ready.gov doesn't work. People aren't going there. They're not taking action based on what they read on ready.gov. So we're looking for alternative ways to engage our stakeholders and provide them with education and trainings that would allow them to take actions, to do some preparedness actions.
Right.
And we've done, and specifically the one that you mentioned is titled Helping Helpers, right? So how do we help all the folks that are out providing, 12, 14 hours a day of assistance to the general public? And that was actually a program that was developed. We had some money last year where we were able to submit for some special project funding, and we were able to hire a contractor to develop some additional modules for CERT. So we were hearing from our CERT teams, our community emergency response teams in Region 2, that they would like to see some additional training. So we had formed a working group. And out of that working group, one of the topics that came up was helping helpers. And it was intended to be an in-person delivery. And the contractor was able to switch gears with us on our request. And we delivered 4 of the 6 trainings virtually. And then about a week or so ago, we did the train the trainer for trainers to be able to continue to deliver those 4 modules. We do have 2 more modules. I'm hoping, in first quarter that we could deliver them in person. But if that's not the case, we're going to look to switch gears to do those virtually as well.
Excellent.
Here's your second question. I think some of the webinars that we have coming up would probably answer that. So, December 1st, we're doing one, the older adult and the emotional impact of infection control measures. We're doing another one of emotional aspects of COVID on K-12. But we also want to look at young adults. So we're going to be doing one that addresses individuals up to, let's say, 22 years old. So what happens after you get out of high school and you start college? How is, what's the emotional impact to them, and what kind of resources do they have to help them through these kind of strange times, right? My son graduated from college in the midst of this. He was away doing an internship and was told he had to come home and, had X amount of hours. We didn't know if they were going to let him graduate. He graduated very unceremoniously. So how is this impacting him and that whole kind of age group? We've also been working on a lot with our disability integration advisors, where we've offered webinars on effective communication, accessible communication, not just communication, but accessible communication. We're working on a webinar for dialysis patients and dialysis service providers. We're working on one with mask considerations. So what happens to the people who can't wear a mask? What are the rules and regulations? And we're working on 2 webinars about service animals. So how does this impact them and their environment? So lots of good stuff.
There are no limits. It sounds like there's just plenty on the horizon. Well, let me ask you this. How do people find that webinar?
So we created a little short link. I mean, obviously signing up for Region 2 announcements would be ideal, because every Monday we send out a webinar announcement and list all our upcoming webinars. Every 2 weeks, we produce a preparedness and resilience bulletin, and a link to all the upcoming webinars can be found in that bulletin, along with the description and the registration information. But if you just want to check out our calendar, we created a bit.ly link. So bit.ly/R2 webinar calendar.
Say that one more time.
Okay. It's bit.ly/ so bit.ly, the letter R, the number 2, and the words webinar calendar with no spaces. R2 webinar calendar, no spaces. And that'll take folks where they need to go to see what we have coming up.
Excellent. Y'all are just kind of paving the way for, I think, the way many of us in the other regions are going to go. And right now, I think the key is for us to partner. And that's why I wanted to have you on the podcast today, was to just be able to share with our partners in Region 6 what was going on, what appears to have a great national impact coming out of Region 2, and what's probably going to be shaping the way we do things for the future. Tell me about yourself. You and I have talked at various things. You came to Texas, to Weslaco Weslaco, Texas, for that was a Ready Business
Ready Business workshop.
Yeah, Ready Business Flood Smart kind of deal there, maybe 3 years ago. And then you and I have gotten to meet again at Youth Preparedness Council summits in Washington, D.C., and various occasions. And I always, what was it last time? I think it was the National CERT Association gathering in Naples, Florida, if I'm not mistaken. So correct. It's just been a pleasure to get to know you over time. I have shared with you that I was a newspaper man in my past life before coming to FEMA as a community preparedness officer. What was your path in here?
So I actually worked in the printing industry for 20 years prior to FEMA, and mostly doing project management. And when Sandy hit the East Coast and impacted New Jersey, I actually took a leave of absence from my job. And I said, hey, listen, something I want to do. I would like to learn something new. I'd like to try something different. I'm going to go work for FEMA for 3 months, and then I'll be back. That was in November of 2012. I've been with FEMA ever since. I've had several different positions. I worked in the Sandy Recovery Office for 2 years, the JFO for 2 years, then the Recovery Office for 2 years. And in 2016, I joined the regional preparedness team.
Great. Now, speaking of, I know just from dealing with you and checking out your webinars, you've got a little bit of partnership that helps you with that. Who is on your team?
Oh, I am so lucky. I have a great regional preparedness liaison, Allison Albright. I have a great preparedness specialist, Bijal Patel. But we also have really good leadership. And I think that has a lot to do with me loving or being so passionate about my job. I have a great, right now, an acting branch director, and our preparedness division director in FPC, Russell Fox, has been so supportive of the webinar programs that we do and the resilience preparedness bulletin that we do. I mean, during COVID, people were especially just hungry for information, that we actually also switched gears on our bulletin, and we were producing this 12 to 16 page document every week for 12 weeks. You know, and I think we consider ourselves more of a clearinghouse for information. So, you know, we were getting all this great information from HHS and CDC and all these partners, and we were trying to get it out to the public as quickly as possible, as timely as possible. And I think our FPC, our division director, was really integral in supporting us with all that.
He's been there over the years. I've seen him at the same, you know, the Youth Preparedness Council summits and where we've had our successes. Just as I'm asking how you're doing it, y'all have at different times, Russell and you have both said, hey, talk to us again about this Regional Youth Preparedness Council. How do you get going there? And,
you're my idol when it comes to youth preparedness. I love.
I think we share that, because I just go, oh my goodness, I'm here just immersed in webinar envy and the way you're doing things there. So I think we're a mutual admiration society. I'm going to ask if there's anything you've got to say before we start wrapping it up, knowing that the only limits we have are Zoom limits.
I'm very grateful, you know, even though we are putting on these webinars, we are not the ones that are necessarily providing the content. You know, we have reached across to other federal agencies, to state and county subject matter experts. We've reached out to some universities. We had a tsunami webinar this week, and we had professors and doctors from the University of Rhode Island, the University of Delaware. We'll have some folks on the mask webinar from Duke University. So it's not Debbie Costa talking about tsunami. We really are getting the subject matter experts that seem all too happy to assist us. And I think that the information is definitely getting in the right hands. The fact that we record them and allows people to go back, you know, hey, I missed the first 15 minutes, or I wasn't able to attend at lunchtime, you know, where can I find this? And they're able to listen to the recording at their leisure. As far as attendance goes and where the program has started to where it is today, if you had asked me in 2019, what would I consider a successful webinar? My answer was, if I get 100 people on a webinar, that's fantastic. Now, if I get 100 people, I'm really kind of disappointed. Our average is probably 300 to 500. And we have had webinars with as few as 100 people, but we've also had them as high as 1,500. Our webinar last week on ham radio, amateur radio, we had 750 people on that webinar.
Hey, that's fantastic.
And to give us all a plug, and you this was really your idea, Bill. So I know we talked about partnering, doing a webinar together, but I'm really excited about the fact that all 10 regions are going to be partnering with Region 2 to do a webinar series in early 2021 titled Resolve to Be Ready. So everyone needs to make a resolution. We're going to be looking at 10 weeks, 10 regions, 10 steps to preparedness. So I'm very excited to see where that goes.
Now might seem a little bit bleak, but the future does seem very rosy. And I do like the partnership that we enjoy, and the partnership that you have extended to the other regions. I think that we're looking at good things ahead of us. Debbie, thank you so much for what you do. Thank you so much for joining us today on the hashtag R6 Prepares podcast. It's always a pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Feelings mutual. Thank you, Bill. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the hashtag R6 Prepares podcast. Check us out anytime on Twitter at hashtag R6 Prepares, or follow us on the YouTube channel, hashtag R6 Prepares. Thank you to Lee Baker for his production. See you next time.